I call the Honourable Member Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. 2 nights ago, along with maybe 500 other concerned Wellingtonians, I attended atmospheric physicist and NASA Director Dr James Hanson's lecture on climate change. Dr Hanson is in New Zealand to highlight the risk of climate change to our planet and to future generations. He says our global climate is nearing the tipping points. Changes are beginning to appear and there is a potential for explosive changes with the effects that will be irreversible if we do not rapidly slow the growth of fossil fuel emissions over the next few years. In particular, Mr Speaker, he is here to raise awareness on coal, which he describes as the single greatest threat to civilization and all life on our planet. Coal is the biggest threat because it's the largest source of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the one easiest left in the ground. His tour coincides with an important part of our New Zealand future. The government is actively encouraging, through its draft energy strategy, the hugely expensive Think Big plan to destroy valuable Southland farmland, to dig up dirty lignite coal, which will destroy our climate credentials and our valuable clean green brand. Over the last 10,000 years, Earth climate has been remarkably stable, fluctuating by less than 1 degree centigrade over that period. This has enabled civilization to develop in a safe, constant environment. This has led to the society we see today. Preservation of life as we know it on this planet requires us to stabilise emissions at or below 350 parts per million. We are currently at 391 parts per million and rising by 2 parts per million a year. This government has an inadequate 50% by 2050 emissions reduction target. However, even this lowly emissions target will be impossible to meet if they allow the lignite plans to proceed. This is the height of a responsibility, and as Dr Hanson repeatedly points out, climate change is a scientific issue, but more importantly, climate change is a moral issue, requiring we in New Zealand keep the coal in the hole. So what does all this mean for New Zealand? We market ourselves as clean and green on the world stage. However, Dr Hanson says of New Zealand, the fact they're even thinking of digging up the lignite shows there is a huge gap. Lignite is at the coalface of the New Zealand environmental crisis. It is estimated New Zealand has around 6.2 billion tonnes of economically recoverable lignite. The trouble is, lignite is the most inefficient and amongst the most polluting types of coal there is. Nevertheless, Solid Energy and others are pushing their proposals to mine it, ignoring the critical report from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment that claims mining just isn't worth it. We are dismally failing our current climate change target, and allowing the lignite conversion to go ahead will signal to the world we give up on our emissions reduction targets and our valuable clean green brand. If the proposed lignite mining goes ahead, our emissions look set to rise drastically, as much as 20% of our country's emissions from one lignite to diesel plant. Lignite trashes our clean green brand and our international climate treaty credibility. Under this national government's emissions trading scheme, the plans could potentially cost the taxpayer $275 million a year from carbon credit subsidies that the miners would receive. Over the lifetime, the cost of just one lignite to diesel plant is likely to be in the order of billions. Clearly bad for the government's books and bad because it locks in polluting industries. In oral questions today, the Acting Minister of Energy and Resources attested there would not be subsidies. However, either she hasn't read the PCE report or she's changed the rules without telling anyone else. Lignite coal has environmental costs, fiscal costs, but also significant opportunity costs. The capital invested in these projects should be going to clean tech, green tech projects that are greener, cheaper and will last us forever. Mr Speaker, Dr Hanson is New Zealand and is talking about his grandchildren as his motivation for tackling the climate crisis. My son Arlo, who's now 3 years old, by the time he starts school, we could have an ice-free Arctic in summer. By his 10th birthday, we will have likely increased the atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations more than the preceding 150,000 years of natural emissions. By the time he starts high school, we could have lost more than 3,000 cubic kilometres of ice from Antarctica and Greenland. I want my son and his children and everyone else in this room's children and grandchildren to grow up in a world with a stable climate. In this chamber, we will not be the ones to bear the impact of our irresponsible actions. Our children will be, and their children, and every generation to come, not to mention every other species with which we share this, our only planet. Kia ora.
I call the Honourable Member Aaron Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I just want to start off with the lunacy that we just heard from the member from the Green Party.